Good morning and welcome to this week's IGTV. Today I'm talking about how do you create summer structure or chores for your teens so they don't just video game all night and literally sleep all day, because that is not a responsible human that you are going to raise. Heck no. I hear this from parents all the time, so I think it's time to let's just address it. I know in the US that you're already a month out of school and you've got a month left. In Canada, we're just finishing school, as with Europe. So I hope that today's IGTV will help you get through the summer with your teen in a way that creates just slightly less conflict and a little bit more calm and ease. Okay, so let's talk about summer chores for your teen. Now, first of all, your teenager is not your employee. That's it. Your teenager is not your employee. Okay, so that's point number one. Is your teenager going to spend an excessive amount of time in their room literally doing nothing? Yes, actually they are. They are. The teenage brain requires an excessive amount of downtime and rest because it is growing all new hardware, developing all new software. I know if you've watched my videos, you've heard this 100 times. That's exhausting. You know how you feel like when you're in a really stressful time or like a really emotionally heightened time, and you just find you're exhausted. You're not really doing anything physically. You haven't done anything physically, and yet you are friggin' exhausted. That's what teenagers are like. Some teens are going through massive growth phases. My son grew almost 8 inches between 12 and 14. 8 inches between 12 and 14. My youngest did that between 14 and 16, although he grew a little bit, like 6 inches. So they can be physically growing. That's exhausting. But the mental and brain growth is also exhausting. So teens need downtime. They need an exorbitant amount of nothing space. Just nothing. Now, I know you're probably like, yeah, Allie, but they're not doing nothing. They're literally on their phone or playing video games all day. That is also, it is escapism. I get that. It's downtime for them. It's also connection time with their friends, okay, depending on the video gaming. Now, growing up in the digital era is not easy. It is their problem. It is not their fault. So all of a sudden, oh my goodness, excuse me. All of a sudden, just because your teenager is on video games, etc., during the day, doesn't make them lazy or irresponsible. It makes them a product of growing up in a digital era. And so, if you and I used to hang out at the school or hang out at the mall every single day, we did that when we were kids. We were literally hanging out at the mall every day. Doing what? Doing nothing. Literally sitting on a bench in the mall, doing nothing. Nothing. So how was doing nothing at the mall less or more productive or better for us than doing nothing, like playing video games? Now, I do understand, yes, video games, dopamine center can be addictive. I got that. But I've done articles, okay, about teenagers and video games. And I have done a bunch of research, and there is still no definitive research that says video games destroys the brain. Destroys the brain. There are plenty of scientific research projects that have gone on that show that video games actually increase eye-hand coordination, increase their fine motor skills. It can increase positively their reactivity. It can also increase their problem solving and their communication in team-based games where they have to work together. So yes, there are some there's some downsides, but let's just not be like, video games are terrible. Blah, blah. Let's just not do that. Okay. Yes, first-person shooter games or those can have a greater impact on their brain. But video games, if you've watched any of my previous videos or articles, also increase their confidence. Because video games, they can try as many times as they want. There's no repercussions for dying or failing because you just restart and start over. Because of the repetition of having to start over, they build mastery faster. And it is an environment in which they feel safe. I'm not saying it's permanent or good long term, but there's a lot of upside. So, okay, I'm going to just leave that for a second. Now, summer structure and summer chores. Okay, so teens need a lot more downtime. Video games are not going to kill them. Let's move on from that. For our teenagers, what we did was this. We said you've got to have like a part-time job by 15 or 16. You've got to have at least a part-time job through the summer. And part-time, a couple days a week or some smaller shifts. If you chose not to. Because our kids, like your teens, didn't want to get a job because their brain needs that downtime and they just want their summer to like be a rest phase. And that's not a bad thing either. Okay? So what we said, okay, is if you're not going to get us a job, then I know I just said in the beginning your teen's not your employee, but we made this communication up front is if you decide not to get a job by 15-ish, a part-time job, then we're going to have larger projects for you to help with around the house. That's what we did, okay? And so one summer we had our boys work very well together. Hi, Suzanne. Our boys work really well together. And even if they don't, I recommend this for siblings to improve communication. We had them restain our deck. And we, once a summer, they each had to clean out a vehicle. So it's learning some life skills as well. And through the summer, they had to take turns mowing the lawn. Because where we live, the grass is needs to be cut about every 4 or 5 days sometimes. And do just some extra things like that. Like we have a covered deck that gets kind of dusty, so they had to vacuum the deck. So, and that's on top of doing their own laundry and, washing their sheets and things like that. So, it's about teaching life skills, doing larger kind of projects if they don't want to get a job. Maybe there's some things that they can do around the house that are extra that they earn some money for. So for us in the summer, we said, if you cut the lawn, for every time you cut the lawn, it's $10. Because that was extra on top of their already existing chores. Like I said, laundry, garbage, recycling, dishwasher, dinners, like all that stuff. Okay. So they could, they could do extra things to earn extra money. Refinishing the deck, I think they each got $20 for that, like restaining the deck. They had a hoot doing that, by the way. They were literally laughing most of the time. Now, any life skill that you're teaching your teen doesn't come with condemnation, criticism, or judgment because they are just being lazy. Can we just please let go of that? Please, can we just let go of that? Because if you are coming at these summer chores or developing some form of summer structure for your teen, from the perspective and the belief that your teen is lazy, you are living in condemnation and criticism. And I can tell you how much that feels awesome. It doesn't, and it never will. And your teen will give you more defiance and disrespect. Wouldn't you? If someone that you were with inherently believed you sucked and you were lazy and irresponsible, and so they had to just give you things because you just, do you get the contempt in there? Contempt is toxic. Believing that your teen is simply less than is toxic. So please check your thinking. Check yourself. They're a teenager. Their brain is going through the second and final growth phase of their lifetime. Just because they can get dressed, put food in their mouth, and use a toilet does not mean they have the brain of an adult. They don't. And that brain development is inherently exhausting. So back up the bus a little bit. This time in their life that you are seeing as projecting out 20 years where they are homeless, living under a bridge, worthless because they're so irresponsible, this time lasts maybe 3 years. You're looking at a 3-year window and you're making up a story that your teen is obviously missed the mark. And you will not have that as a parent. And you're taking this personally when they are just growing. They're just being a teen. Okay? Now, I'm not saying don't have basic boundaries around your house. As I just finished saying, our kids still had the regular responsibilities of their laundry and emptying the dishwasher and helping with dinners, even through the summer. That didn't change. Okay? I'm just saying, your teen's not your employee. Your teenager is not an adult, so stop expecting them to be an adult. Okay, when you are teaching them like life skills, okay, like we use cleaning the car, like restaining the deck, that took mentorship. Like, I know it sounds crazy, like go clean the car. We did this to my son once, and I will never forget it. It was awful. It was awful. When our kids were 12, we decided they needed to learn to clean a vehicle once a summer. That's it, just once. And we would either split the car down the middle, like the driver's side. One son would do the driver's side and one would do the passenger side. Or we'd split it like front to back. And with my oldest, we didn't tell him how to do it. And so what happened was he used a cloth with soap on it, right, to clean the inside of the car. Right? That's good. And then he used that same cloth to clean the windows. Well, I'm sure if you've ever cleaned a window before and you take a soapy cloth to do it, it was all smeary and it was like cloudy and it was terrible. And we went and gave my son heck for that. And you know what? Bless him. You know what he said to us at 12? He said, well, that's not fair. You didn't even tell me how. And he was right. We didn't. We did not mentor him in that skill, and we got mad at him for knowing something that he would never know. And so then we taught them. We went back and apologized and said, you're right. We should have shown you how to do this and not expected that you would know. And so we showed them, like, this is how you clean a car. Not because your teen is going to care as much as you care, because they're not going to, so please let it go. But here are the basics of like how to vacuum and wipe. And we taught them that you clean the car with one cloth that's kind of soapy and you wipe everything down, and you use a separate non-soapy cloth to do the windows so they don't go streaky and gray. And now they know. And when they're finished, we don't critique the job with a white cotton glove as if they live in the palace. Please stop that too. We go over it with them and say, great job. What do you think went well? What did you learn? Did you have struggle with anything? You have to actually make sure your teenager has the skills, the training, and the right tools to do the job. Okay, so that's from a summer chore perspective. Now, here's the other thing that I want to say about this. Your teenagers, and I've written articles about this too, your teenager's circadian rhythm naturally switches up to 2 hours in the adolescent brain growth. So they have a more difficult time going to sleep early. They are more naturally a night owl, okay? So getting to sleep sometimes by like 1 o'clock that's the best they can do. If they normally went to bed at 10 or 11, they might have a hard time getting to sleep by midnight or 1 a.m. That also does not make them lazy and irresponsible. So check your thinking. Teenagers also need more sleep, drastically more sleep. So if you're like, well, you're not sleeping till noon, that's just lazy. Okay, so again, they're not an adult. They don't have an adult brain. They have a teen brain, which is relatively normal to sleep until noon-ish, okay? So just ease up here. Your teenager probably wants to game all night or stay up all night with their friends and sleep all day. Okay, is that inherently like super healthy? No, not long term, But is it going to kill them in 1 or 2 summers? No, it's not. This is 1 or 2 summers in their lifetime. No, it won't. So let's not catastrophize or like make up that you have inherently failed as a parent and they are obviously a terrible teen because of 1 or 2 summers in their lifetime. Can we just have a little perspective? Okay. So again, these are things that you need to negotiate with your teenager up front. Again, we said our teens had to have a part-time job by 15 or 16 through the summer. And if they did not, then there would be some additional chores. And we would let them know what those were. We would give them the training. We would give them the time frame. This is when we would like this done by, like staining the deck. It has to be done. We have to look at the forecast. Is it going to be no precipitation for 1 to 2 days after staining the deck so that it works well? You have to mentor them in these things. You've got to teach them. When you're doing the stain, it needs to be done at around this temperature. We live in an area where it can get very, very hot and the deck is in the sun. And so you're going to have to do it either in the morning or in the evening so that the temperature is appropriate for the stain to properly cure and dry. You got to mentor them in these things. Okay. So we were like, no, you're not going to sit around every day. So when I'm talking about creating a summer structure and summer chores for your teenager, yes, and there's a balance between them being a teen and needing a dramatic amount of downtime for their brain to form and just like not having to learn all day, every day in school, which can be a lot and overwhelming for their brains, and providing some simple structure or simple ways for them to contribute to the household without being your employee. Okay? Like there's a line in there. Now, some people also use that, hey, look, here's the Wi-Fi. I will turn your Wi-Fi on for your phone once these few things are done. That's another thing you can do is here's the basics that I need you to do first, and then I will turn the Wi-Fi on for your phone. Or you can have, here's a certain amount of Wi-Fi for every day, and then it's going to be turned off, and then these few things can be done, or here's ways you can earn extra internet Wi-Fi time. So maybe it's like a couple hours in the morning or in the early afternoon, then the Wi-Fi gets shut off, then they get to have an extra certain amount of time later in the day. That also works. It teaches them regulation, which again, your teenager's brain does not have impulse control and emotional regulation. They also don't have an adult level of internalized, like, this is what I want to do with my life, and passion, and this is time management, and this is how I goal setting. Your teenage brain doesn't have all that. It doesn't have all that. And you trying to force it to have all that is just shaming, blaming, and criticizing. So please stop, okay? That level of self-actualization doesn't tend to happen until at least their early 20s, if not beyond that, because of the brain formation. So be careful of your expectations. So again, basic structure, you might want to set limitations on Wi-Fi, set limitations on internet access. You cannot force your teen to go outside and get exercise. Would it be great for them? Yes, it ultimately would. Can you force them to? No. Also, some teenagers are just not, like, they're not physically inclined, so they don't like sports and other things. So again, as much as outside time is great, like a 30-minute walk or hanging out at a park, something like that is really great to help their brain reset hormones. It's great for a ton of regulation in their brain. You can't force it. So stop criticizing or shaming them into doing it. Instead, encourage them. Now, even mowing the lawn, that happens to be 30 minutes of outside time, 20 minutes of outside time, right? So encouraging them to do things, be careful. Are you encouraging them to do things? Are you shaming and blaming their teens to do it? And if you are also not doing it, maybe you work full time, are you getting half an hour to 45 minutes of outside time every day? Because if you're not doing it, that's kind of pot calling the kettle black here. Are you then expecting them to do it? So just be careful of your how you're running your prison yard. It's not a prison yard, and so enforcing them to go out and walk laps around the yard for half an hour. This is about encouraging, not enforcement. Okay, because they're not in a prison. This is a house, so you don't need to be the jailer or the sheriff. Okay. Yes, and doing things together is great. So if you go for a walk, encourage them to go with you. Don't expect them to talk to you the whole time. They're not your bestie yet. Allow them to walk in silence. Leave it at that. Okay? Here's the biggest thing I want to say about this whole summer chores, summer structure thing. This is a limited time in their lifetime where their brain is going through a wild renovation that is exhausting for them. Not physically exhausting, it is like mentally exhausting, which inherently creates a physical exhaustion. It's just like if you were going through a super overwhelming, stressful time and you're like, I don't know why I'm so tired. I haven't done anything today, but I'm so tired. That's them on a daily basis, okay? Learning life skills, doing some extra basic things around the house that they can perhaps do with you or learn a skill and do on their own time is great. Otherwise, just because your teenager is requiring a lot of low time doesn't make them a giant failure and you haven't failed as a parent. Here's what I want to say. A lot of what I hear from parents comes from the statement, well, wouldn't that be nice? Well, wouldn't it be nice to just sleep all day? Okay, I'm going to just say this one time. Check yourself. The thought process of your teenager is lazy, you are resentful of the amount of time that they are getting sleep or rest, comes from envy. Wouldn't it be nice? Comes from envy. Is your resentment toward your teen and the amount of rest or sleep or do nothing that they are getting in a day coming from your envy that you are not giving yourself permission to rest? Is it coming from the perspective that you and your life and the way that you are choosing to spend your time or the things you believe you have to do in a day in the way of you getting a significant level of rest? And so you are envious and resentful of your teenager getting what you most want, desire, and need. Because that will create contempt, judgment, criticism, and a whole lot of other toxic things that will disconnect your relationship with your teen when they are being a teen and you are not doing the self-care, boundaries, limitations, joy, pleasure, fun in your life that you need, that your teenager is not now and never will be responsible for. So blaming, shaming, criticizing, condemning your teen for a level of rest, nothing space, nothing time that you want but are not giving yourself is not their problem. And I want to tell you this, no matter what anybody has ever told you until now, you do deserve downtime. You deserve that nothing space to regenerate, to rejuvenate, to relax, to release all the stress that you're carrying, all the supposed to's, the have to's. Those are not your teenager's fault. And you are allowed to put them down and create rest. You are not a less than person for creating rest. You are not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. It is necessary for sustainability. So this whole struggle Olympics, be careful what you're programming into your teen. Are you programming into your teen that they've got to be doing something productive all the time, or they don't have value or worth? Because that's how I was raised. I was raised that anything that wasn't productive, earning, striving time was lazy. And I have had to constantly check myself on how much I'm projecting that on my teenager. Because that's an issue. That's not about them. That's an issue. About a belief or a mindset that you may have been raised in. And passing that on to your teen is creating a human being who truly believes that they need to do, perform, constantly deny and suppress their own need for rest, self-care, listening to their body in order to be loved and approved of. Let's not perpetuate that crap. Can we just not? I know I've done it. I came from that and I've done it. The struggle Olympics. Can we stop labeling self-care as lazy? That starts with you. So please, this summer, let's find balance. Let's find a balance for your teen that means they don't need to, because you have to, does not mean your teen is supposed to get up every day, be dressed by 9, have breakfast, be productive in their day so that they earned value and worth with you and in the world so that they were a contributing human being. This is literally a 3-year span in their life when their brain requires this nothing space. And you can still have a level of structure around limited Wi-Fi, extra contribution around the house, learning some new life skills. If they are not already working part-time or volunteering somewhere in a reasonable level of time. Some kids have sports that continue through the summer. But you taking out your resentment on them for a level of rest and rejuvenation that you desperately want and need in your own life, but will not give yourself permission to take, is not and will never be your teenager's fault. So just be careful of how resentment actually is rooted in envy. And that let's make self-care sustainable, not self-care selfish. Okay? Find the balance. And if you're unsure, send me a message at Allie Payne here on Instagram. Maybe we can brainstorm some ideas. I have some other articles about that on my website. There's a balance. And a balance is not something that you dictate. A balance is something that you negotiate with your teen. You don't dictate it, you negotiate it. This happens through conversation. Of course, they're going to want nothing. Yeah, that's who they are. They're a teen. You're going to want everything. Find the middle ground and love your teen where they're at. Love them where they're at instead of shaming them for who they are. And love yourself enough to give yourself what it is you might be envious that they currently have. All right, that's my message for today on summer structure and summer chores for your teen. I hope you found this helpful. If so, post your insights in the comments. I'm going to put this up on my Instagram right now. Hit the follow button. And if you're over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I'm here every Thursday at 11 a.m. talking about things parenting teens, and on TikTok Live Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Thanks so much for your time and attention, for sharing, for the love, for the likes and the comments. I will see you soon. Bye.